Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Average Asian Boys podcast. I'm your host, John, and today my guest is Brian. Brian's my friend from high school.
Yeah, and apologize. John went ahead and kind of blew the entire budget for the year. Actually,
My bank account is all
exactly.
empty now.
Yeah, all $2,000, I believe. That was
Yes.
That was it. Yeah.
Yes.
On Shay from last week. So
Yeah, I
apologize.
had a very expensive guest on last week. so-
Exactly. All the marketing budget out the window. So,
yeah, the marketing, the production budget, just I can't afford to pay my employees now.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's rough.
Well, still supplying the beer, so that's always important.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is my first time being on the podcast, but also I'm a huge fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
John.
Really appreciate that.
I'm a huge fan of not only last week's episode, but kind of all the episodes before.
And do you also like associate yourself as an average Asian boy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm the target audience. I'm
You're the target
exactly the person that you should be talking about with this, and I think that's part of why I like the episode so much. Yeah, there's
okay.
So many topics that resonate with me. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm super happy to have you on today.
Mm-hmm.
So in high school, me and Brian would share stories about how strict our parents were.
Oh my, yeah.
And honestly, that really helped me get through like the struggles that I had in high school, because it made me realize that I was not alone in this struggle. Like, other people out there are struggling with their parents being very strict on them and just, making sure that they just had no life.
Yeah, sometimes I think about this. I think nowadays, like with Discord and YouTube and everything, like, if you're like, I think like one of the nice things about the internet is just the ability to highlight community. Like it makes you feel like, oh, I'm going through something, and you can kind of like in one search away, you can find that community. You can,
Yeah.
And nowadays, like there's terms for kind of maybe what we thought our parents were, which is like, tiger parents, like tiger moms,
Helicopter parents.
yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
like those terms didn't exist when we were younger, like we thought like, oh, this is a unique situation just for ourselves. Like there's no way like anybody else could understand this.
Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah,
I'm the only one who has to go through this pain and suffering. Everyone else gets to go out and have fun and hang out with friends and stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, I think like one of the things that I guess like when the topic is broached, like when you think about strict parents, is like, what does strict mean to you, right? And so yeah, like what made you first realize that like your parents are maybe a little bit more strict than how you were expecting?
Sure. So I grew up in a white suburban neighborhood near Vancouver, right? And we lived in a cul-de-sac where it was like a lot of white families who were very like community oriented. So it's like, yeah, we all hung out, all the kids hung out, and we just we'd go over to like each other's places, their backyards, and to just hang out. Except for me, I was not allowed to go to their house, and I wasn't allowed to go to their backyard. I couldn't even go over to like the next block over because it's just like if my mom could not see me with her binoculars,
Exactly.
then there's just like there's
Yeah.
no way she was
Yeah.
letting
Yeah,
like I
there's
literally could not be out of her sight.
Back then the cameras, just like the megapixels were so low, right? Like so by the
Yeah,
time
we were
you
only on
zoom
1
in,
megapixel or
exactly.
something, so they didn't have the they didn't have the fancy zoom features back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So going with that, like what was your explanation? You're maybe whatever 10 years old or something, and
yeah, I
and all
was
your
around
friends
10.
are like, hey, we want to go check out. We want to go to so and so's
Yeah,
house.
we're gonna go to the
and-
forest nearby and just like dick around for like the next 6 hours. You want to come?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, I can't.
Yeah, like what?
And they wouldn't understand that either.
Yeah, so
I mean, I didn't understand.
I was gonna
it.
exactly. I was gonna say like more than just. That was always the hard thing I had with it too, which is like when friends are saying like, oh, actually, this was actually I don't know about you, but Mondays to Fridays were Mondays to Thursdays you weren't allowed to really like go out, right? That was
Okay.
Those are school nights, and so the only thing that you can do during school nights is
School stuff.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Especially during high school, it was sort of you do your school thing, and then right after that, you better come home and do homework, right? You better come home and do Kumon, right? Whatever. It may
yeah,
be.
all that exciting stuff.
And so it wasn't even just like my friends were confused as to why I couldn't go out. Like it was confusing for me, and so therefore I had an even harder time explaining to my friends like, oh, I can't go out, because they'd be like, why? And I'd be like, I mean, I don't really know
Because my parents said so.
exactly.
Yeah, that was I was in the exact same spot.
Yeah, and
So
like,
why can't you come hang out with us? I don't know. My mom said so.
yeah, exactly.
I was like I just felt so stupid saying that too.
So given that, like, when, I guess, did you ever think about like pushing back against that, or thinking like, hey, like, this doesn't make any sense, you know?
Oh yeah, I definitely tried for sure. I'm like very rebellious, I think, against like authority figures as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, I live under my parents' roof.
Right.
And it's like, I can only get away with so much.
Yeah.
Like everything that I had to do was like, I had to do behind my parents' back, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like such as like me talking about like sneaking in some extra video game times when my mom was in the shower, right? Just like, all right, there's extra 10 minutes. Gotta start that PlayStation 4, you know, run a couple laps on that racing game.
PlayStation 4.
PlayStation 1. I don't know why I said PlayStation 5.
Whoa. Yeah. PlayStation.
I keep making this
We're doing,
mistake in this podcast.
we're doing this.
It was a PlayStation. It was the
Yeah,
PlayStation 1 era.
You're playing Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of in the.
I'm just
your
trying to-
CRT, you know.
Just trying to make it to the next save screen, you know.
Exactly. You're trying to hit that save point.
Yeah, so it's like I had to do all these stupid, sneaky, behind the back kind of things, and I just didn't feel good about it, and I didn't understand why I had to do that in the first place.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
your favorite story where like you kind of got busted, you know, trying to sneak that, and then your parents kind of caught you, and you're like, whoops.
I've been busted a couple times for sure, but I don't think I have a like. There's no great story regarding that. It's
no,
just like,
yeah.
oh man, I suck. I got busted. You know.
Yeah, I think for me, I remember this. Kind of going back to it, like Mondays to Thursdays, you know, definitely no video games allowed. That was it's a pretty strict requirement. And you know, back in our days, like Diablo 2, that was
Fucking Diablo 2, man.
Exactly.
That was a great
Trying
game.
to get those Stone of Jordans, you know, those Sajas, and I remember we were trying to sneak, like, I think we had like one of those like professional development days or something, you know, one of those like random days off.
Off
And-
school.
Exactly.
Yes.
And my parents were gone, and we were like, brother and I were like, oh, this is a perfect time, you know, we can
Yeah.
we can sneak
fire it up.
some games. And what happened was, like, we were playing, and you know, like, you're playing, you just get lost in the game, right? You're grinding, you're doing whatever, and you're just lost in the game. And we thought we were so sneaky because like you can hear the doors opening, right? We had this alarm system, you could hear the beeps.
Okay.
And we were playing like pretty carefree, and then we hear the alarm ring, and then we're like, oh shit, like our parents are home, like we gotta clear it all off.
Yeah.
And you know, we thought we were so slick, right? We like killed all the programs, right? Like just exited and just like pretended like nothing was happening.
Control deleted everything.
Exactly. But unbeknownst to us, we were in the basement, and actually there was a window in the basement.
Oh.
And actually, before my parents had entered the house,
Yeah.
had just been staring through the window
Yeah.
at our computer as we were like, you know, as we'd been playing for like 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
It was
Just
pretty
like,
bad.
They just pulled out the lawn chairs and just like started looking
exactly,
in.
Exactly. And then, you know, like they come home and they're like, what are you guys just doing? We're like, oh, you know, doing computer. You know, we're on the computer. We're like doing homework, you know, looking stuff up on Ask Jeeves or something, right? And they're like, no, that's bullshit. And then we're like, no, what do you mean? And then they're like, and then, you know, like after a while, they're like, no, we saw you for like 25 minutes, like on the window. And we're like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck. And then, we just got totally busted. That was like such a pivotal moment for Yeah, that was
And you
definitely
never
like
got busted again after that.
no, man, you gotta train, you know, you gotta train your techniques and just get,
You really
get
do.
better at that.
You really do. You just got to get sneakier, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, given that, like, you know, strict parents, you know, you're sort of juggling that like Eastern versus Western, and I think
It's more like because like I saw like that other people got to do things that I couldn't do. I
Yeah.
think that was what was so difficult for me.
so actually one of the questions I was going to ask you with the fact that you kind of had split this, like what does strict mean to you was like, I remember one of the things that my parents were like was most strict to me about was like the notion of sleepovers, right? Like it
yes.
was like I couldn't even fathom having a sleepover.
No,
Like,
I've never been to a sleepover. I have no idea what that's like.
but then like for something like alcohol, for instance, right? Like I'm not saying my parents were like buying us alcohol when we were younger, but they were, you know, they were looser about that, right? They were like maybe a little bit more understanding about like, oh yeah, alcohol, like not that big a deal, you know, like maybe go out for dinner, like they would like, you know, if you want to try beer or they try to wine, they're yeah, sure, pour them a glass or something.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like did you find that like your parents are maybe like more progressive or like more understanding about certain situations, or
No,
like,
they were very strict
they were
about
just
that.
like,
They're like, you're not allowed to drink alcohol until you turn 19. So you will not drink alcohol until you turn 19. Like they follow the law to the letter, to
Yeah.
the T.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like my mom is the type of person who drives at the speed limit. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy.
do people honk at her?
Yeah.
And she's just like, fuck you, like
Yeah.
keep going.
Speed limit, yo! I was
yeah.
like, oh my god, it was embarrassing.
And well, I mean, I appreciate your mom's adherence to the law.
Yeah, she's a law-abiding citizen. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what made you kind of want to break those barriers? You know, break those laws.
Oh well, because like I was fed up with not being able to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just like not only do I see my friends being able to like go out and just have an ordinary life, but it's like I just didn't like. It's like I didn't sign up for this. You know, I don't want to be doing homework 24/7, and then after that, just like doing more like math tutoring, English tutoring, whatever, all the tutors you can think of. Then you got to do the homework for the tutors. And it's like, yo, man, this life sucks. I don't want a part of this.
So when
It
did that
wasn't for me.
change? When did that change for you?
Oh man, I mean, I guess, you know, like all my life, or you know, throughout my earlier years, I guess you can say, my parents had just raised me to be, I guess, an academic or just,
Wow.
you know, the drill. Go to school, get good grades, and then get a good job. That was the path that had been laid out for me. And then after when I started going to university, you know, I had a little more freedom.
Yeah. Wait,
Because I
how
was
did that happen? Because like one of the things that I've noticed with university was like it's not like the situation kind of changes, right? I guess like the schedules are a little bit more flexible, but
little bit.
you are still kind of Monday to Friday trying to take classes. So
Yes.
what was it about university? Like did you notice
it's-
like they started opening up like a little bit? Like
Well, it's just like I could stay out later, right? Because like, oh, I've got this class in the evening, so I guess I can't come home until 8 o'clock. Oh no, so late.
the
Oh,
impact, the impact of evening
jeez.
classes.
Yeah, thank gosh for evening classes existing. Yeah, because some of them go as late as like 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yo, man, I got to be in class. So I guess I'll come home later.
The ultimate justification. I think that was
Exactly.
like I totally
Education.
remember this too. Like in high school, like one of the only reasons I was able to go to a friend's house was if it was for a school project, you know. So
Oh,
it was
yeah,
always,
same here. Yeah.
it was always like, oh, I got a group project, so
So,
I
we gotta get him to his guy's house then.
you gotta go,
Yeah,
and then
he's gotta go. He's gotta go.
you work for like 2 hours, and then like the end of the 3 hours, you're like,
Play video. Oh, it's like, oh, thank you.
boot up the computer.
Let's go. Let's go. Level 2. Here you go.
Exactly.
Oh man, fucking good times. But yeah, it was like university. I had more freedom because, like, I just didn't have to be at my parents' house all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
university is like the first thing that happens when I wake up is they drive me to school, and then right when school ends, they drive me back home. There's nothing in between, right? It's like I'm either at school, which was when I had the most freedom, and then I had to be at home.
Did you feel like did you like start I assume at some point you like maybe tried commuting, like just taking the bus or like
I think
biking
I only
or-
I only started taking the bus like at my last year of school. But yeah, it was just like if my parents are gonna, it's like how do you go to your parents and be like, hey, you know, instead of you driving me, I'd just rather take the bus. Like that doesn't make sense, right?
So given that, right, like I think maybe to share my experience, like I think, you know, I've known John since high school, and it's been a little while, but I think like maybe one of the biggest deviations between you and I was like I went away for university, right?
Yeah.
So
Huge deviation.
yeah, that was actually one of those things for me where I remember I got into UBC, and and the only actually the only
Which is the school nearby.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah. And my parents only allowed me to kind of go to one other school in Canada, and I was like, this has like I have to like I think like it's actually kind of interesting. Like sometimes when you watch like those TLC like those Maury shows or Jerry Springer, where like you see the kids and they're just like fucking punks, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like,
Little
like,
shitheads.
yeah, exactly. There's just these little shitheads, and the mom is like, "Hey, you got to stop doing that." And then the like 9-year-old kid is like, "Fuck you," right? And then you're like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like that never happened for us. Like, I guess maybe my first question to you is like, what do you think caused it such that like we weren't like those little shitheads that like, you know, your mom is like, "Hey, like no playing video games," and we're not like turning around and being like, "Fuck you." Like,
Yeah. Well, there's just no way they would let us like talk to them like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if we ever like swore in front of them, like, you know, it's like a stick to the face.
yeah. I mean,
you'll learn pretty quick after that. It's
Exactly,
like, oh.
exactly. You get smacked pretty quick on that. Also,
you know.
they don't know English, so like saying "fuck you," they're just like, "What?" just doesn't have the same resonance the way that kids here have it when they speak to their parents.
It's very true. But yeah, there was just like very little room for like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
defying your parents'
Exactly,
authority.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I think it felt like the only way to handle that situation was, okay, I have to leave. You know, like, you know, I'm in this.
Yeah, you gotta get away.
Exactly. I'm in a strict household, so
Yeah.
like, I really gotta leave, and I really gotta leave home for it. Like maybe for you, like, was that ever a consideration? Did you ever?
Oh yeah. So there were 3 places that I applied to, right? 2 were the schools nearby, UBC and SFU, and then 1 was McGill. I didn't get to McGill, so we know what happened. I know.
Fuck.
Fuck. God damn it. Yeah. And I ended up going to UBC, which was a 20-minute bus ride away from me. So there's no way to letting me live in a dorm.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like to share my experience on this, I felt like that was probably the biggest transition, which is, you know, you don't live at home anymore, and so the 3 or 4 weeks that they get to see you a year are precious to your parents, right? Even if like your 17-year-old or 18-year-old like pea-sized brain doesn't like quite acknowledge it, like
Yeah.
I think to your parents, like they very much understand that they're really only going to be able to see their son for a month a year, and so it sort of loosens things up. You know, they don't when you're away, they don't see your degeneracy, right? like they don't see you.
And
as
they
you're,
never
like-
will.
Yeah, they don't see you as you're like puking your guts out like everywhere.
Yeah.
Or, like in the university campus, they don't like
Yeah.
see you as you're like doing your terrible dance moves on the dance floor, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
see any of it.
Trying
And-
to like pick up girls in a really lame way.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think all of that happens, and then I think the second part is like also maybe like for me it was like more okay to be kind of under strict supervision because it was like, oh, it's only for a week, right? So like for a week you like try to be an angel.
Yeah, I just gotta put it up for a bit. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
before you know it, it's done, right? You like get to go back to school. and-
Yeah, versus like,
back
oh
to
man, I've been
partying
doing
life,
this for 10 fucking years, and it's like, oh man, I am sick of this shit already.
So I can see that, and I can see like why the transition is like maybe a little bit different between you and I. But
Yeah.
how do you think? I think right now, I think if our parents were to meet, our parents might have similar strictness or similar
Very
expectations.
very similar values.
Like, what do you think caused your parents to maybe start loosening that? Because you're saying like, you know, for me, I felt like the answer to that question was
Was you getting out of
exactly
home in the first
right?
place?
Like for you, like, what do you think was the answer to that question?
It was flunking out of school.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And like, how was that experience?
Yeah. So I always say like flunking out of school was the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and also the best thing that's ever happened to me, because you know so basically what happened was, you know, I started going to school and I had more freedom, right? And when I turned 19, I was legal to drink, and so that's when I started drinking alcohol, and obviously because I had no experience, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, so I was just getting like, you know, blackout drunk
Yeah.
way too often. Had no idea when to stop.
Yeah.
Just making a complete fool out of
Yeah,
myself.
some would say we still don't know that level of control right now.
They don't need to know that.
You know, some would say that.
Yeah, I've definitely I've definitely felt a little embarrassed a couple times in the last few years for sure.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, it's like all you can think about is like, oh yeah, just partying all the time, right? Because this is like I'm making up for lost time. This is like I never got to do any of this stuff in high school, so I got to go as hard as I can. That doesn't usually end well. Yeah, and honestly, I still feel like I'm. This sounds so stupid, but I still feel like I'm still catching up. You know, which is why I still go out as often as I do.
I mean, like to defend you for a little bit, I think like that's actually one thing I noticed as well with. So I currently live in the States for the audience, and one of the things I notice is because the drinking age is in Canada is 19.
And in the States, it's 21, which is
Exactly.
pretty outrageous.
Yeah, what happens is I feel like you sort of smash the two times together, right? You smash the like, hey, I can drink, and you smash the sort of like, I want to go out clubbing, and the two kind of moments sort of like merge, and so you sort of get like that, that like hyperbolic time chamber, right? you like really learn your like drinking limits really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But I think what happens in US is it gets stretched out, right? So like in university or in college, like they sort of get the taste of like, oh, this is what alcohol is. This is what frat parties are like.
Yeah.
Here's like what binge drinking looks like and jungle juice and everything. And then like when you hit 21, you can finally go to the bar. You can finally go to the club.
Yeah.
And then it sort of opens up like a whole new world for them. And I think like, you know, to say that like, I don't think that you're behind. I think what happens is like in the States, they actually elongate the situation, which is actually why I think sometimes like, when you go to the bars in America, like in the US, like you're like, oh wow, everyone here is like much older. Whereas like, you know, in Canada, like when you go out, you're like, I shouldn't be here. Like,
Oh, oh, really? That's a very interesting observation.
And so, yeah, I think like because of that, like I think that blend doesn't happen as much. But
Did you feel like you went through that as well, or was it because like your parents allowed you to drink when you were a little earlier, then you didn't have as much of that, you know,
yeah.
craziness?
I actually think like maybe the better question or maybe the better answer here is, I don't know if the audience knows this, but like, you know, your family situation, which is you're the older one.
Ah,
of the
yes, I am
family.
I am the number one son. That's correct.
Exactly. Top tier, top son
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Whereas you are the younger
Exactly.
son.
I am the younger one. So,
Yeah, you get away with more.
exactly.
More things
So,
for
so
sure.
John right here, you know, favorite, you know, example of the family,
That's right.
carry on the legacy, right?
Yeah.
The one-
Holding the honor of my
exactly,
ancestors.
exactly.
Boy, did they pick wrong.
You know, the one who is supposed to carry the legacy,
Yeah.
and I think you're right. I think like I think it has less to do with maybe the leniency of my parents when it comes to alcohol, and more around, that which is
The
like
burden of being
exactly
the elder
exactly
son.
exactly the
Yeah.
burden of the crown. you
That's
know?
very true. I was like, as the older son, I was supposed to be the the role model
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff, right? And especially, I was supposed to be a role model to my younger brother, which they always reminded me of. Yeah, that didn't go well.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, like, I love my brother, but it's also one of those things where he definitely paved the way for me.
Nice.
You know, I remember going back to the strictness. You know, I remember him stretching the curfew out for us, right? Him
Yeah.
stretching. Him stretching out how many times we could go out one week, you know, because it wasn't even just, oh, you know, Monday to Thursday is school night, and so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday it's party time. It's, you know, you get one movie night a month kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Or you get like
Movie
maybe
night.
you get like 2 bobas, right? You get like you get to go out with somebody to like grab boba like twice a month or something. It wasn't like, oh, you know, Monday to Thursday, work hard, play hard. It was like work hard, play seldomly, ideally, you know.
I mean, it's like for me, like I never even got that, right? Like you mentioned, like Monday to Thursdays being like a school day for you, but for me, it was Monday to Fridays. Like I had no concept of what Friday was like because to me that was just like an ordinary day, right? And then the only difference for me was like weekends, I don't have to just go to school, get to sleep in a little,
Yeah.
have some more time off. and
So
that was
actually,
about it.
wait. Okay, this might be new news to me. Now I'm just super curious. Does that mean you were able to play video games on Monday to Thursday?
Yeah.
This is so unfair. This is what I'm talking about with the leniency.
Yo,
this is some
dude.
fucking bullshit.
Dude, it was like I got like half an hour to play, and that was it. Like you can't do jack shit in half an hour.
This is the part where like you like have to like ninja quit in the middle of Dota.
Yeah, exactly.
Where
It's
they're
like, just go
they're like-
AFK.
yeah, they're like, what the hell? We just
Yeah.
go to FF. Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
4v5.
Yeah.
Super unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, my parents, it was like, and that's what I'm saying, which is like it wasn't even like, oh, Friday to Saturday and Sunday. It's like, party night.
Yeah.
It's more about
Oh, we got to play some more video games.
yeah. What it's actually more about is like, okay, Friday you're actually able to, boot up the computer for non-schoolwork reasons, and you're actually able to play video games, which I think is like probably what contributed to me playing way more video games than before. Where it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, you got to make up for lost time.
exactly, yeah. When your parents are like, you cannot absolutely do whatever you do, you cannot play video games. It sort of makes you feel like I gotta fucking play video games.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the more you tell someone not to do something, like the more they're gonna do it. Yeah.
So
That's been my takeaway from my childhood, anyways. Yeah.
so actually, I feel like I cut you off there when
Oh, it's
you
like
were-
we'll get back to it eventually.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about how, it was after you sort of flunked university that you're like the leniency sort of opened up. Like, how did that happen? Was that really just like a sort of you flunk on the Friday and then like the Monday your parents are like, John, just go wild, man.
No, so I feel like I didn't like really properly explain like the series of events. But okay, so when I flunked out of school and like my parents found out, right, they were obviously it was bad. And they were very upset with me, and in fact they became even more strict with me because they're like, all right, you got to study even harder now to get back to UBC and then finish your degree and all that stuff. So that was fucking miserable. Like imagine being like 21 and your parents are literally making you like read an accounting textbook for a course that hasn't started yet in the summer when everyone's like, out on the beach, having a fun time, going to a bar, getting wasted, all that stuff. And then there's me like sitting at home reading an accounting textbook that my parents made me do.
Yeah.
Like they made me read it when I was 21. And, people wonder why I still like, sometimes I still feel like I'm, I don't know, chasing after my childhood. It's because of things like that, right? Like that memory is just like permanently burned into my mind. Like, oh my God, this is humiliating. Like I'm a 21-year-old kid and my parents bossing me around like I'm still 12. So yeah, they got even more strict after that. But basically what happened was I had to go to another college to do some further studies. And in the meantime, I also started working at a restaurant. And then that restaurant was open pretty late, like sometimes till 2:00 in the morning. And then so I got to stay out late for work. And then sometimes after work, I just end up going somewhere else after that. So it was like starting from that moment, it's like, okay, we can't actually tell, like my parents were like, they can't actually tell me to stay home past at a certain time because it's just like, this guy's just out late, right? Like they can't tell me to come home at 10:00.
You come home wasted and you're like, no,
Yeah.
it's just the patrons are buying me drinks. I'm just like, I'm so good at working at this restaurant.
Yeah,
People
it was
love
just
me.
like, so I'm coming home wasted a lot of evenings, and my mom would actually like stay up till like gosh knows when, waiting for
Yeah.
me to come home.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of pretty crazy when you think about it too.
Yeah, I mean, to share the story, like started going back to like, for like older brother pushing the limits here. It's like,
Yeah.
that happened for me too. And like what happened was like, I wasn't the one that was on the receiving end of this, right? Like it's the war of attrition, Like
It is.
Like it really is like
It is. It's a
the first
long-term battle.
Exactly. The first time you do it, your parents are just like, I'm gonna murder you, right?
Yeah.
And then the second time, they're just like, no, I'm just gonna seriously mean you, right?
I'm just
and
gonna
then, like,
seriously murder you.
exactly. And then like it gets like progressively like weaker and weaker and weaker, right? Where it's like, and you're constantly pushing it, and then And at some point they're just like, all right, I'm like kind of tired of this, and I'm like also
Yeah.
getting a little older, so just
Yeah,
like,
at some
fuck it.
point, like they can't do it anymore. Right? It's just like you got to figure out. You got to figure out when you can push that limit, right? Yeah.
So okay, yeah, so they loosen it up a little bit more, and
Yeah, because like I was like working pretty late, and then staying out later, and then just like being able to. Again, it was just all about getting out of the house. That was the most important part for me.
yeah, and maybe like to expand on that more, like obviously now it's been a few years since you've worked in the restaurant industry.
It has.
And you have your own place now, and
I do.
just look at this sweet setup here. Look
Oh,
at this.
thank you. Yes, podcast
Exactly.
studio right
yeah,
here.
Yeah, big enough space to have a podcast studio of your own. You like reflecting on all of this, right? Like how does it make you feel? Like the strictness, like obviously it's made you who you are to a certain extent. Are you appreciative of it? Are you empathetic to the situation? Are you like, this fucking sucks? Like,
I mean, yeah, like obviously it did suck that I had to go through all that and fun stuff, but I'm not mad at my parents for putting me through that, right? Like they were just trying their best, and they were just doing what all the other Asian parents were doing out there too, right? Like the way I see it, it is what it is, and all I can do is move forward from that.
yeah, no.
And maybe try not to try not to go too crazy every now and then.
Do you think I guess they don't see any of that nowadays, right? Because you're not gonna go back to your parents' place and be effing loaded and just like, yo, what's up? Or
No, I mean it's like I just see them when I can, but it's like I'm just doing my own thing now, right?
yeah, but sorry, I guess my question to you was more, do you feel like your parents have loosened up as well, like over time as you've gotten like older? Like one of the
Yeah.
classic stories I always hear, certainly in Asian culture, is like they're like, don't date, like don't see anyone, focus
Sure.
on your school.
Okay.
And then like the minute you graduate, like literally while you're like the day after you graduate, they're like,
Right.
why aren't you married? And then you're like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? Like how did the shift happen? Do you feel like that shift has happened to your parents too, where they're like, don't go out, like possess no social skills whatsoever, like don't even attempt to talk to people because your entire attention should be on school. And then like suddenly, a month after maybe you graduate or something, as you're looking for a job, they're like, you should meet everybody and like try to find a job. And then you're like, so how am I supposed to develop these social skills while you were telling me not to talk to anyone for the last like 6 years or 10 years or
Yeah, I don't think there was like I guess there was a very slight gradual shift, right? But again, like you said, it's kind of all over the place. Like they expect you to have a girlfriend when they told you to not talk to girls in high school. And yeah, so I don't know. I think even for me, like when I started 5 years ago, when I started working like my first real job, right? Like a corporate office and everything, they were like always telling me, oh, John, you got to get home by 10 o'clock so you can get enough sleep for work tomorrow. I'm like, yo, just fucking relax, man. Like I'll be fine. So they were still like kind of hammering it on me, even though it's not like they were like strictly forbidding me to go out or anything, right? Like I'm fucking 26 at this point, but it's just like they wouldn't stop pestering me about these kind of things. And like I remember just getting so annoyed, right? Like I came home like at 11 o'clock once and like, oh no, John, you're like staying out too late. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I still gotta put up with this fucking bullshit, man. So, oh man, and they don't do that anymore, but it was just like, even as recently as 5 years ago, right? Like I was still feeling that.
Yeah.
So I've just come to accept that they can't stop. Like this, like they just can't help it.
Yeah.
Even like every time I tell my parents I'm going out for drinks with my friends, like my mom's always like, "Oh, John, don't go out and get drunk." I'm like, "What do you think I'm going out to do, Mom?"
What do you think the alcohol is about to do to my body?
I was just like, "What part of this do you not understand?"
It's great too. I like obviously nowadays I come home a little less because I don't live here.
Yeah.
But so like whenever I go out, my parents don't even say like, don't drink. They're just like, don't drink too much.
Yeah.
I guess like, okay, and then maybe to add to that, like for the audience members out there who are also, this is the Average Asian Boys
That's
podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plural. So for the other people who are kind of going through the same situation as us, like what are like maybe some pieces of advice that you might give them? What are some things that you might be like, all right, like you're struggling through this.
Yeah. What
Might
are some stuff
feel like you're
what are some stuff
alone.
I'd go back in time and tell myself, right? Dude, this is gonna sound like so bullshit, but it gets better. It take a very long time, but it eventually gets better, right? Like, I never imagined like I would be when I was in high school and I couldn't go out and have friends and all that stuff. Like, I just couldn't imagine a time when my parents would just be like, when I could just walk out the door and my parents would be like, all right, cool, see you when you come back, right?
Peace.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like that. There's just no world where that exists. It's like every time I wanted to step outside the house, it's like I had to fill out like a form, application to leave the house. Where am I going? Who am I hanging out with? What time am I going to be away from? When am I coming back? All that stuff, right? And then, one day, you just become an older person, and your parents realize they can't tell you what to do anymore, and they're also getting old, so they get a little more tired as well. So, it gets better eventually.
That's also how I know that we're getting older. It's like one of those things where like when you start giving advice that like you see on TV shows, or like you start giving advice that you're just like, bro, what? Like I heard this when I was like 10 years ago when I was in high school, and I was like,
I remember hearing this advice. I'm like,
BS.
this is like the dumbest shit I've ever heard, right? But it's like I actually don't know like what to say. It's like you just gotta hang in there for fucking dear life,
Yeah.
You're gonna go crazy for a few years, and you're gonna turn into someone crazy like me, and then but one day you'll realize you have the ability to live your own life. And honestly, for me, like I'm still struggling to figure that out, because it's like now I'm in a situation where I am in control of my destiny. I have my own place, and I'm just like, wow, this is like everything that happens to me now is going to be because of my actions and no one else, right? And I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that thing when people ask me, oh, what do I want to do with my life? I don't know. My parents have been telling me what I should be doing my whole life. Yeah. So how can I know? Like, I can't just wake up one day and decide like I want to make decisions for myself.
Successful podcasting career, I believe, is what you want to do with your life now, right?
Yeah, I can tell you like that successful podcasting career was definitely not an option, not parent approved option.
Pretty sure podcasting wasn't even a thing back when
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Like we had there was radio talk shows and TV shows and all that stuff too, right? And I think that would be cool too.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I think like when you're in high school, it just like the world is so contained. It just feels like this is it, like if you don't get this right, you're fucked. And what you don't realize after high school is like, it almost doesn't matter at all what you do in high school. Like it has almost no significance on who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And like, if anything, like it just continues to expand from there, right? Like what you choose to do in university or college is more impactful than whatever you did in high school. And sort of what you do kind of, those years right after, right in your early 20s, like what you choose to do there are more impactful than whatever you did before, right? And so the world just continues to expand. Sort of reminds me of like, Final Fantasy VII, when like you spend like the entire first quarter of the
in the city.
Yeah, you spend the entire first quarter of the game in the city, right?
Yeah, in Midgard.
Right. And you're like, this is insane.
This is all these so big.
Yeah, this is Junkard. I'm hopping around and like and like you get out of Midgard and you're like, wow, that was an amazing thing. And then like they launch you into the world map and you're like, wow, that was
just one part.
That was nothing.
Of the whole world.
Yeah, that was like one tiny city.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of the entire world.
It's a big fucking world out there. I mean, that's how I felt when I went traveling by myself for the first time. Right.
Yeah.
I went to Europe, totally different continent, experienced like very many different cultures and lifestyles, and I'm just like, wow, there is so many different ways that you can live your life, and not just like the one way to live that my parents have been telling me this whole time.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a mind-blowing experience to me. Yeah, like again, just like realizing there is such a great world out there.
given given that sort of, Marvel Loki, parallel timelines,
Oh,
the what
gosh.
ifs, like, looking forward on, like John as a parent, right? John with a mini John.
The Little John.
Yeah, the little John. Like, what do you like? What's the style that you think you're gonna go with, right? Like, what's do you think you're gonna go with that hardcore old school like Eastern customs like style? Or do you think you're gonna go with that like new school West
Yeah,
Coast?
I really don't know. I mean, in my mind, ideally, I'd like to be just super chill and laid back and just like, all right, let my kid do stupid things and he'll figure it out along the
Yeah,
way, which
yeah.
would be the opposite of my upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, that's what I would like because of the way that I've been raised.
Yeah.
But in reality, who knows? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
like,
What if they're
I
like?
mean, I'm
what if
like,
they're,
I'm okay with hitting my kids. I
Yeah.
really hope I don't have to, but like, I'll just say this, like,
Yeah.
like I think hitting kids has like, there's a merit to it.
Look, I mean, for the audience who don't know, like John's somewhat of a karaoke singer, has
Yes.
the vocal talents right there. And let's say your child doesn't have those vocal talents, but
Right.
they're like, Dad, really want to become, the next Grammy Award winning artist.
Okay.
And then you're like, this is never going to happen. Like, what do you do then? I think it's always, I think the interesting thing for me is always just like trying to think about how I think I would react to a certain situation, and then like
Yeah.
really pushing that to the edge, right? Like trying to think about like, okay, this is the case, but then like, what if I can think of some crazy scenario where like my kid does something even more, and like, would I still react the same way, or would I like try to revert to like what my parents were thinking at the time?
Okay. So yeah, because like our parents are just like, no, you can't do this, and no, you can't do that. right?
Because one of the crazy, like, this is so unfair, but like one of the things I think about now is like when I was a kid, like video games were like the bane of existence. Like there was nothing
You're like,
worse.
you're a fucking loser if you
Yeah,
play
there was
video
nothing
games.
worse that you could do than play video games.
Yeah.
But now
It's like the coolest thing ever.
Valorant, like you can be a pro player. Like
Yeah.
League of Legends, like world championships,
Mm-hmm.
ESPN, you're making 6-7 figures a year.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a viable career.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a pro player, full-time Twitch streamer, clearing, 5-6 figures, like these are viable professions. Even I would say like, even if you're not like, I'd say like supremely gifted in these video games, esports as an industry is like a viable industry now, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
There's
You
like serious money in there.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where you're like, fuck man, I kind of wish I was born like 10 years later. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like, I think like, if I see my kid, like trying to be a Valorant pro, I'm not going to be
Sure.
like, this is stupid. This is a waste of your time. I'm going to be like, why aren't you immortal yet? Right? Like what's going on? Right? Like why just, when, what tournament are you going to sign up for? Like,
Right.
But you sort of push past that, right? And you think about like, okay, what happens if they want to be a pro gamer and then like they're playing and after like a year, they're still Iron 3 and you're
Yeah.
like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're
like,
not going
you-
anywhere.
you're not going anywhere. Like how do you push them to be like, you gotta stop playing the game? you fucking suck.
Yeah. I think that's really hard because, as a kid, when someone is telling you, or even like me as an adult, when someone's telling me that I can't do something, that just makes me try even harder, right?
Exactly. They're like, John, there's no way you can finish this handle of vodka.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck
Zero
you,
chance.
Let's go, man. Yeah. I think the way I see it is you have to let the kid figure out that if eventually that this is something that you can accomplish or that you can't, right? Because the only
Yep.
person that can convince that person is themselves.
I got
That's
you.
how I see it.
So you're saying the father figure for all of us is Tilt.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Get it, like get headshotted enough times, and at some point, you
yeah.
just
One
give
day
up.
he's gonna like just rage quit like for the 100th time and be like, you know what? Maybe I can't be a Valorant
exactly,
pro."
exactly.
Yeah.
You're like I am 3-16 for like the 15th
Yeah.
time in a row. Maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like as a extremely stubborn person, I always say the only person that can make me do something is myself, right? Or if a girl convinces you otherwise, that helps too.
yeah,
But-
yeah.
Well, I always say it's like, it's more like if a girl convinces you to do the right thing, right? So the example that I always use is like my ex got me to start driving again after I made a promise to myself that I would not drive for the rest of my life because I got into a stupid argument with my parents. So one day she was telling me that, oh, you know, what if one day I have to go to the hospital and I need someone to drive me there? It would probably be useful if you knew how to drive me to the hospital.
I
And
mean,
was like,
you just Uber now, right?
you could. You don't got time. It's like she's bleeding out. You're like, all right,
Like 7
you gotta wait
minutes.
for the Uber?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ain't nobody got time for that. Okay, it is an emergency. So I was like, you know what? You're right. That sounds like a good idea, and I want to do the right thing. So the right thing is to learn how to drive. So that's what I'm gonna do. So it's that, you know. But you got to make. It's like they got to figure out themselves, or you got to help them get to that conclusion that you know they can do this or you can't.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Which is like, I think personally for me, I take like the mantra of you're the average of the 5 people closest to you.
Yes.
Very much to heart. So
Yes.
And certainly, you know, in high school you have a little less choice of like who those 5 people are.
Yeah.
University, you have more choices, but maybe a little less, like in terms of like limited to like nowadays, you know, we're all working professionals, you know, we're all adults. Like you very much have a choice of who those 5 people are.
Yeah.
And so, you're right. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, your girlfriend, your partner, your boyfriend, etc. Like I think the idea here is like you want to find people close to you that motivate you that motivate you to want to become like who you want to become, right?
You want to surround yourself with good people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I guess that would also be my advice to my younger self as well. Although I would say I've been really lucky that I've just naturally always surrounded myself with people who are like, you know, good influences to me. My parents were actually like extremely picky about who I hung out with. Did you know that? Because they're like,
I didn't at all. I don't even.
Because it's like, oh, if they get a whiff that this person might not be a good influence to me, they're like, you can't hang out with this person. Not that they let me hang out with people in the first place, so I don't even know how I got there. But
I was gonna say, I've known John for quite a while, and I think I've maybe said half a sentence to his mom.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I've,
That sounds about right.
yeah. Even now, I don't think I've ever seen your parents. Like,
No.
I could not pick them out.
They really keep
amongst
them,
a sea of Asians.
They really keep them to themselves. So that's just how it is.
yeah. And I want to give I would push you to give yourself credit on this as well, which is like, I think a lot of the times we tend to like have a gut feeling and then try to explain away that gut feeling. So like you have a gut feeling about like, hey, this person seems like, you know, bad business. And then you're like, oh, you know, he held that cup wrong. And so like, clearly he's a bad person. And it's like, well, no, like what happened is like, you had a gut feeling that like this person wasn't like somebody you were that you were vibing with. And so
It's true. I've always like kind of like acted on intuition, and gut feelings. You know, that's
Exactly.
just how I operate.
yeah. And so that's credit to
So-
yourself, right? That like, you know, like you have a decent, indicator, you have a decent barometer, like your gut feeling, like you
Yeah,
have
I
a
don't know.
decent
I don't know if I've
intuition
been.
on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe because I've always just said I'm lucky because like I'm probably the easiest person in the world to scam if you really wanted to. You know, like just be like I don't know, tell me some like stupid ass sob story.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
I gotta help this guy out, man.
Yeah.
He's my homie. You know, shit.
Dude, John, I can't get home tonight. I
Yeah.
really need
Well,
like,
it's too bad because I blew all the budget on last week's guest. So you're shit out of luck.
I was gonna say I was hoping for, you know, a couple of tips, and what it really just taught me was I just got to get out there and lose my money, right?
Well, I mean, personally, like I've never really displayed that I have any sign of wealth whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? I mean, most of my life I've just been broke as shit. So it's like, you know, I'm not the person to come to when you want money. Although there was this one time when I was working at a restaurant and my friend actually came, like a good buddy of mine came up to me and asked me to borrow $100 to buy cigarettes.
Okay, how many cigarettes was the person smoking?
I don't know, a lot apparently.
This feels like
And so I've never lent my money to anyone
Yeah.
before, right? And my parents always like, no, never lend
Yeah.
money, never lend money to anyone. And it's like, especially for like to buy cigarettes, right? Like, which is like something I'm obviously against. But you know, I don't know. I just went with my gut feeling there.
Yeah.
It's like, this is like a really good friend of mine. And, you know, I trust that he'll return $100. And so like, I just like, here it is, man. Just take it.
So maybe the answer we're all waiting for is, did you get the 100?
I did.
Back?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, it could have been easily like, I just never saw that $100 again.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of money to me back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he like shared a cigarette with you, would you be like, I fucking bought those. Like, this is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. You put that thing, put that thing back in your mouth, you know. No, I just be like, yo, I got my own, bro.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't smoke or anything. So, but yeah, I just kind of operate on gut feelings a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard roll.
I think like as we get older, like it just becomes the answer to a lot of things. Like I think I'm more willing to say that as the answer now than I was in the past, where I felt like I had to justify the reason. Nowadays, it just feels like, I don't know, because I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, I don't have enough like brain power to like allocate to like thinking about this, reason that. It's like, yeah, you know, like, okay, sure, why not?
Cool. I mean, so given that, like, so you know, strict parents, sort of adjusting to all of that, right? With whether it be for work or for school, you know, like you're loosening these like conditions, and your parents are probably less strict now than before. Like, how is the situation now? Because I think like one thing that I like, maybe one story I would describe is I think like growing up, there was always that. Certainly, like in Eastern customs, there was always like this sort of, you know, I'm the father figure.
Yeah.
You're the son. You know, got to have that hierarchy situation going on.
Sure.
But then, you know, as I got older, it really did feel like maybe through influences of like my dad's like my dad's friends and stuff, is like I think he saw that his friends were having a really good relationship with their kids, like a very like friendship based one.
Yeah.
In the way that like I think after that my dad really like pushed to, yeah, like it sounds weird to be like, he really pushed to be friends with me. Like I think he like really pushed to like try to get to know me and
Oh, okay. Interesting.
really like try to have that conversation with me. Like I would say like, yeah, to the point now where it's like I think the situation now is very different than what it was in the past. Like, do you feel like, you know, at your age now, like looking back on all of it, do you feel like your relationship with your parents is like, has it evolved? Has it become different than before?
Yeah, it's definitely changed more recently, but it's been a very slow process of healing, I think, and it's just gonna take time, right? It's like, I don't know. I've spent so much time being angry. I've spent so much of my life being angry at my parents.
Yeah.
So I can't just wake up one day and be like, la la la, everything's fine, right? And I find that even like sometimes I still react very aggressively towards like something that my parents do that annoys the shit out of me, right? Just because it's like I've been dealing with this for, you know, 20 plus 30 years or something like that. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like honestly, like sometimes the way I speak to my parents can be very disrespectful. Well, disrespectful for an Asian kid.
Yeah.
Anyways, right?
Yeah.
It's like my mom will like, you know, like parents, they love asking questions. They ask the same damn questions every day, right? And then so it's like sometimes I just feel myself being very impatient. And, you know, I just do like a, did I stutter kind of thing, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Which is
yeah.
obviously very disrespectful.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, sometimes, you know, I feel like I'm still kind of working on getting that out of my system.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just going to be.
The first time you did it, were you like, did I stutter? And then, you know, and then they're like, whoa, John's talking back to me right now. Or
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember when like the first time, like, or when I would really do that. It's just like, I kind of like I'm kind of more mindful about when I do that now. Because it's like, oh, you know, like this is not, like I probably shouldn't do that. You know, it's.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is like...
it's like a very in the moment kind of response too. So
I think
just
like
did it
as you
without
get
thinking.
older, I think you view them... I think like as you get older, you realize, you know, like, I don't actually... I have no idea when your parents had you, but like, it's probably at around the age that we're at.
Yeah, exactly.
And And I think like one thing I realized as I've gotten older is like, you know, you're able to empathize a lot better now, right? Where like,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, you think you're like, holy crap, when I was 3, like my parents were acting this way, and you're like, what the fuck? My parents are insane. And then you're like, oh wow, my parents were my age, and if I had a 3-year-old right now, I would probably be like,
Yeah, I'd be like, what the fuck?
reacting in this
What am I
way.
doing?
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
Holy shit.
And so that empathy like sort of develops the older you get, which is like,
Yeah.
you know, that, and like as you get older, like you're like, oh my
For su-
god, I'm
yeah,
tired
for sure.
all the time.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I get it now. Like, especially seeing my friends have children and all that stuff. I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot of work.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is so much work. It's like, you know what? I was a little shit. I probably deserve to be smacked a couple of times.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
It's like, yeah, no problem. No problem in that department. Yeah. I'm not angry at my parents for like the way they raised me. It's just like the way, again, it is what it is. I think the one thing that I just wish would have, like, if there was one thing that I could change,
Yeah.
it's just that I wish they could have acknowledged their mistakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, I'm perfect. Like, everything I say is like the rule, right? I'm like if you tell me the sky is green, it's fucking green. Like,
Yeah.
that's what, and I have to accept
Yeah,
that.
I said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I fucking hated that. You know, it's like, just fucking admit that you made a mistake so we can fucking move on.
Yeah, the insane thing there is like, I think like maybe again like more differences between like certainly as we've gotten older, like parents is deviating, which is like I think as we've gotten older, my parents have been like quicker to acknowledge like the differences, and that like
Yeah.
I think they've realized like, okay, maybe not all of the traditions or all of the customs that they had when they were growing up are the same as what the current generation expects, and they've had to adapt, and they are willing to adapt. I think like the way I think about that is, I'm sure we know a bunch of friends who are like equally as stubborn, right? Where you're like, yo, you fucked up, and then they're like, no, I didn't. Like, this is like the way things are, and
Yeah, I didn't
and
do
yeah, and you realize just like, yeah, this is just like it's just like part of the human condition, right? Some people
It
are a little,
is.
yeah,
But yeah, I can't, you know, I can't. It doesn't do anything for me to like stay angry at them, and I'm not,
Exactly.
right? But it's just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like gonna be a long healing process. And I think my parents do recognize that they do want a better relationship with me as well.
Yeah.
Especially since like it got so bad when, you know,
Yeah.
I flunked out of school,
Yeah.
right? I was like you know, a disappointment child,
Yeah.
right? And it's like everything kind of went to shits afterwards.
yeah. I think maybe the second quote that I'm a huge fan of, like beyond the whole like you're the average of the 5 people closest to you, is like, you know, you're. These are all cheesy things that you would see back in Tumblr or something, but one of the ones that resonated with me a lot was like, you know, you're a kid when you think your parents are perfect. Like,
Yes, absolutely.
you're a teen when you recognize that your parents aren't.
Yeah.
And then like you're an adult when you can forgive your parents' faults. And I think like growing up, like I very much felt that same way, right? Where it was like, okay, whatever, you know, my dad says the sky's green, then the fuck the sky's green, right? Your parents
Yeah.
are like, no sleepovers. You're like, no sleepovers.
What am I gonna
right?
do? Well, what am I
And
gonna do
then-
now?
And then you know, then you get older, and you know they say something, and you're like, well, you know, this is the deficiency, or this is like a quality about them that like you know they're not perfect, right? Like well, nobody is, and then you're probably mad about that, right? You're probably like, what the heck? Like why are they being like this? Like why are they doing this? And then as you get older, you're like, okay, well nobody's perfect. They're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and like maybe it's okay. Maybe you can forgive them. Maybe you can like move on from it.
Yeah, I'm just like it is what it is. Like I just got to work with I just got to work with what I've got. Yeah, and I think you know my parents are starting to also realize that they might have been wrong in some areas. I think this stuff just all takes time, honestly,
Yeah.
which is the hardest part, you
Yeah.
know, because you just want things to change, especially when you're young and impatient, and you're just like, oh my god, can like you know like can people just figure it out already?
Nothing cheesed me more than when we met like uncles and aunties' kids who were younger than me,
Right.
and they would be like, oh, like don't worry about that, it's chill, right? They'd be like, don't even worry about grade 8 grades, right? like those things don't matter, like just have fun. And I'd be like like
You
they'd be saying this, and I'd be like staring at them incredulously.
Yeah, you never
It's
said
like,
that to me.
What are you? Am I listening to the same person right now? Like, who is this person that's speaking? And yeah, and it's like as they're saying it, you're like, this is fucking insane. But then like, I think
is
if you take
bullshit. That's what it
exactly.
is.
But I think if you take a step back, you can also be like, okay, at least they're learning, right? At least they're understanding of like, okay, maybe how I handled the situation earlier on wasn't exactly the best, right? And yeah, you know, now that's why your younger brother is so well adjusted, you know.
It's true. I like to think that he learned everything on what to not do from me, you know. So in a way, I
Yeah.
was a good role model to
Yeah,
him by being an
absolutely.
absolutely terrible role model in the first place.
I mean, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I think he should be highly appreciative of what his older brother did. And
Well, I can only hope so.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm smiling on that.
But yeah, I think to finish things off, I think I do want to go back to, you know, like maybe the things that we would tell our younger selves.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that was a really great, I
Yeah.
think that was a really good point that we just kind of diverged
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
But yeah, so yeah, like, I mean, things get better, it takes time, all that stuff. But also, I think it's really important to find people that are also that you can relate with and are also possibly going through the same thing. Again, you're the average of, you know, the people that you surround yourself with. I remember when me and Brian started talking in high school, again, I realized I was not alone with these difficulties, and that
Yeah.
really gave me the hope and the strength to carry on and move forward,
yeah,
even though it felt like forever.
yeah.
It did felt like forever.
I did.
Yeah, got any pro tips for our younger audiences as well there, Brian?
You know, definitely reach out to the Average Asian Boys podcast for any questions or advice that you might have. I think
AABoysPodcast at gmail.com.
exactly. That wasn't a shameless plug. That was just a straight up plug.
No, not at all.
Exactly. I think, yeah. Definitely echo your sentiments where it gets better, right? Like the world expands the older you get.
Yeah.
I think there's that. I think second is like kind of what I was saying at the start too, which is like there's so many opportunities to find community here. So like
As long as your parents don't shut the internet off, that's the most important part.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, maybe next podcast you can share some secret tips. You know, like head to the public library to get that Wi-Fi, right? Like like chill at your nearest Tim Hortons, right?
Yeah,
Get that
yeah.
free Wi-Fi, and
Absolutely.
so you know, I think now there's an opportunity to see like to meet so many people who are like minded, and
Yeah, like the Average Asian Boys podcast.
exactly. And I think like for that, like don't be scared about sharing what you love, you know, like whatever you enjoy, like just dive into it, right? Be proud of things that you like. Don't ever feel ashamed for it. So that's probably the advice I'd give.
it's the kids nowadays are so lucky they can grow up and be proud that they're video gamers and anime weebs. It's a cool thing. It's a cool thing.
insane. It's insane.
It's
Like,
actually so insane.
I'm watching videos of people doing Naruto signs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like when I was Naruto running as a kid, people laughed at me, and I was like, this is insane.
I'm watching videos of people playing like Final Fantasy X again after
Yeah.
like 20 years after it's been out, but they obviously
Yeah.
they were kids when they came out, so they didn't play it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's like the feels, you know, so emotional, and it's like, oh yeah, I felt those things too
Yeah.
when I played this game 10 years ago.
No.
And all that stuff. Also another really useful advice I think is to like ask your parents like where do they come from? What are their stories, right? Because I asked my parents what it was like to grow up with her parents, and she always tells me that she always felt neglected by her mother. And then yeah, like she was because
Which is what prompted her to focus probably more attention on you.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Like, cause
Yeah.
like you know, she was always working, and then so she was never at home, and then so like my mother had to like take care of herself a lot, and then that's why she went the opposite route and just like helicoptered the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And then after I heard that, I was like, all right, that really sucks, but
Yeah.
I get it at the same time. And now I'm probably gonna be the opposite, where I am just gonna be super hands off with my kids.
yeah,
You know, It's all cause and effect.
I agree. Your parents are much cooler than you expect them to be. They were young once as well, and so
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like my mom was always talking about like going on like mountain climbing adventures and camping and all that stuff, and like she almost like fell off a mountain once and died. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You don't even let me step out the goddamn house. It's like how could you do this to me? You know. But now that's where I get my adventurous streak from. Like, oh, I might die doing this, but
I remember
give it a shot.
Yeah, I remember recently my parents were talking about whether or not once you got married you would live with their parents, and and they were like, yeah, like this generation they always want to move out, and I was like, it's not just this generation. Like you two have been married before. Like you two moved out as well. Like it's I think like sometimes like hearing your parents' stories allows you to empathize or allows you to like bring up situations. Like you're not trying to dunk on them, right? You're not trying to be like, yeah, well, you got drunk before as well, right? But I think the idea is that like if you bring up those stories, they're more readily available to understand where you are, right? To be like, oh yeah, you're right, I did have those experiences as well, and so therefore like I understand that you're having that situation too. Yeah.
So like like after I flunked out of school, right? I remember my parents actually told the story about my dad. He apparently missed like a university final exam because he was too busy playing mahjong.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't imagine like him, like who was like so academically focused, just like doing something like that. Like that was so crazy to me.
Yeah, the mahjong was the Valorant of their times.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's like, yo, man, we're all fucking up. Like I'm fucking up just like you are. It's like, oh, I guess we all make mistakes sometimes. And but yeah, it's just like, oh, I didn't feel the pressure to be like perfect or anything after that, because it's like, oh, I realized like my parents, like when they were young, they just did like dumb shit just like me. So yeah, there's another pro tip.
Yeah,
figure out your parents' story.
Yeah, hear the shit that your parents did. That way you can tell them, you can dunk on them afterwards for it. So yeah,
exactly. Well, I want to thank you for your time today, for coming on to this podcast. Obviously our budgets are very low, and I want to thank John for popping my podcast chair. You actually did a fantastic job. Like honestly, you were probably interviewing me more than I was.
Not at all.
I don't think I asked you any questions now that I think about it.
I think this is one of those things where like John is a much more charismatic and much more story-driven person, and so you just sort of you just play that point guard, right? You just got to pass.
Sure.
And then, John as LeBron James is just going to carry you.
Yeah,
to the
totally.
End, so,
yeah. But yeah, that worked out really well. I'm so glad that you came on this podcast to share our stories. And, hopefully if you're a kid out there and you're struggling with the same issues that we have, I mean, I guess you've got internet now at least. Just remember that.
Yeah.
We didn't have internet back then. We had dial-up. It was rough. It was rough times, kids.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you very much for tuning in to the Average Asian Boys podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.